I come from a field where a lot of brands kind of tried to connect with the people that were working in the industry at that time to try and get the balance of trends and understanding, so the corporation world met the sort of fashion world. But makeup, for me, became a camouflage. Enabled me to kind of go out the door without bursting into tears. The hardest part of our job and the most annoying part of our industry and how we work is that it does affect you emotionally.
You know, as makeup artists, we're always quite alone in our industry, and we often read about others, or maybe we'll just see an image or maybe read a news clipping in passing. So, you know, I love doing this because now I get to really dive into who you are.
And you're so nosy.
I'm not nosy. I'm not nosy. I just feel like, you know, people need to know, like everyone that's interviewed, I really respect, and I feel like they all have something that touches other people, and I feel like your love should be spread out further. So anything I can do to spread that really is important to me. And so the few things I know about you, obviously, is Speed Beauty, which is a lot of people would know for, where you're doing lots of quick tips,
not
tutorials.
Not very on brand anymore, but yeah. Well, because it was called Speed Beauty because the initial videos on Instagram were 15 seconds.
Ah.
And at that point, I was always doing little quotes for beauty editors in magazines. They were always little sound bites. So I thought, well, maybe I'll just transfer those written sound bites into something on Instagram. So the first one was like a Estee Lauder double-ended concealer, like an opaque one and a light reflecting one. So this is a really one. You do this, you do that. Great, Speed Beauty. But now they kind of go on for about half an hour. So I need to get some branding expert in to sort that out.
Right. So after Speed Beauty, obviously I know you from working with Pixie Lott. You do her for The Voice. So I love all the looks that you've been doing. And also you're ambassador for Max Factor. So I love all the little tutorials you're doing as well and representing the brand. It's quite nice to see that, you know, you're inclusive to all the other brands around, but you're really, you know, showing the high street, the luxe and everything like that
just
for real women. And it's really lovely to see.
Real women, real budgets. And I count my lucky stars that I've had a brand that's been so loyal to me over all these years. I mean, to have a contract, not on a financial side, that's obviously fantastic for any freelancer, but to actually have a platform to be able to communicate with consumers via a brand, for me, is brilliant.
Yeah, and I think as well for the person that doesn't really know about contracts and branding representation, because now obviously we've got influencers and Instagram and things, you know, it's not very easy to just get a contract out of nowhere. You know, you really have to have your credentials in order for a brand to do that. Yeah. And then for them as well to be able to elevate you globally, I think it's a really good platform. Yeah.
Well, I think Max Factor used to be owned by a big corporation called Procter & Gamble. And at that time they had sort of Pat McGrath, Sam McKnight. So because I've been doing it such a long time, I come from a field where a lot of brands kind of tried to connect with the people that were working in the industry at that time to try and get the balance of trends and understanding, so the corporation world met the sort of fashion world. So that was fantastic. And a lot of my friends or contemporaries at that time all were working with different brands, and they used to host these big days of all their different products, and the people would come and do chats, and Pat would do demonstrations. It was, you know, what it is now on such a small little capsule scale. And I think one of the beauty editors from Vogue would then kind of write this kind of trend report, as Mac did, and it would all like gravitate to it and try and get the book and see what was happening. And now obviously that's diluted now because, you know, there are so many other ways of communication. But I think always for any consumer looking to get proper advice, it's always best to go to an expert who's sort of not biased and has experience of lots of different ages, generations, media types. You know, you adjust your makeup, don't you, depending on what medium you're working in. If you're working in daylight or a TV studio or a film or whatever, there's so many different levels, aren't there? Yeah.
So, you know, if you wind back to your first memories of makeup, tell me about just a little journey of how you got into it, like what made you gravitate
as a professional?
Just personally or professionally?
Well, I was always, professionally, I didn't want to go and do any A-levels. I was desperate to leave school. And then there weren't any spas as such. We had sort of like beauty clinics, but they were sort of like, you know, quite shut off with like, you know, net curtains and stuff. You couldn't really see what was going inside. But I thought that would be a really great way to kind of get into working with people. I worked in a hair salon, but I wanted to do that. But I thought maybe it'd be nice to do both. I was quite a tomboy growing up, so I wasn't a particularly girly girl. I have obviously wonderful memories of my mother and perfume, and I could talk about that forever. But that's obviously, I think, for a girl who has a mum who likes to dress up, that's a kind of a very common story, isn't it? But for me, I think when I was 15, I had such terrible, terrible skin, terrible acne for many years, that makeup for me became a camouflage. Enabled me to kind of go out the door without bursting into tears. I mean, I used to tell everyone that I was allergic to strawberries. I didn't have acne.
Oh my God.
It's absolutely ridiculous.
I wish I was that clever, because I had really bad acne, but I just like caked it on,
exactly. But when you could see people looking, right? You could see their eyes go around your face, and you're like, and I really tried to like draw on the big eyes, big colourful eyes, and kind of just distract people from looking at my skin, and I would try and keep their eye contact so that they wouldn't go, oh no, but I just can't eat strawberries. And for me, my youth, that kind of allowed me to be accepted, which is utterly ridiculous. But you say these things, you convince yourself, don't you? So it was like, it wasn't that bad. So anyway, going back to what you said, makeup was a tool for me to be able to go out and feel a bit braver, which I think gives empathy as you get older to people who are kind of struggling with how they look, and they want to change that because they want to boost their confidence too, which is what we've talked about a lot in the past. So it came from that initially, rather than being a kind of like, I want to look prettier, or I want to experiment. And for us, I think growing up, for me in the late 80s, 90s, top of the pops in the music industry was just a wonderful thing. And luckily I've been able to dabble in that and work with some great artists and continue from there. But yeah, I'll keep talking, Lan. So
oh no, it's brilliant. That's so fascinating.
Yeah.
So then that's very similar to me. Like, you learned how to make up yourself, but obviously not on the professional level. So how did you transition that into the professional side? Like, what made you just go, oh, this is...
I studied in hair and beauty at Guildford Tech. In that course, it was like a 3-year thing. A makeup artist came from Thames Television then. She'd just been made redundant, so she was like, listen, you can get a job maybe in the BBC, PAYE, but everyone's freelance now, and that's really hard, and you won't be able to pay your mortgage or your rent. She was quite down, because there was a big period of time where makeup artists were employed, and now everyone was becoming freelance. Anyway, from that, she then went to London College of Fashion. I managed to study there for 2 years. It was a really, really intense course. But so many people didn't take it seriously, which is like such a shame. There's like 4,000 applicants. I couldn't afford to go privately. So, you had to do all these like folders, and I got people around doing 60s makeup, 40s makeup, present these massive folders, got in. And that was fantastic. And then makeup artists would call up and say, listen, can I have an assistant? And then I met people through there.
Okay, so the school thing worked for you in terms of getting out?
Yeah, in terms of getting me to London, out of Surrey, where I grew up. I didn't have any contacts within my family or friends. People were like, well, if you don't have a director or producer, nepotism is everything. If you don't have any contacts, you're not going to do very well. And I was like, I am going to prove you wrong.
Yes, this is what I love about that. And I've never, because you're always so calm, and it's very much like me. People are like, oh yeah, you've really done this, done that. But it's that background of where people say, you can't do it, that you find your own way.
You must be able to do it, yeah. And I never said no to anything, even when I was like, can you do a job in a film, the film school, it was in Aylesbury? Anyway, the International Film School are doing a film, so can you do Sunday 6 a.m. call? And I'm like, I know, I've got my friend's 21st birthday on the Saturday. I really don't want to do that, but 2 hours sleep, off you go, you do it. Just because you just never know, right? You never know what job or who you're going to meet. So it does take a lot of energy to be and sustain ourselves for this long. You've got to keep going, but it's within us. It's our passion. Like we were talking about someone retiring, in a couple of years. I'm like, but I just don't think I'll ever retire, because it's just part of who we are. And I love women, and I love meeting people, and I love learning about people. And it's such a social job, isn't it?
Yeah.
And to have a job where you go and meet different people every single day and you learn from different people just kind of gives me energy. I'm a sucker. I'm definitely a sucker. So lockdown for me was really bad, because I was like, I need people. I want to talk to people.
That's what I really noticed about you, is that you were, because I'm so used to it, like you said, like at the beginning, where if you're around down people, they say, oh, you can't do it. You won't do it. I didn't think you'd do it. And you know, proving them wrong, and then naturally meeting you was such a fresh air because you've got this, you know, long credential list. You know, you're up there. I mean, if you were to ask people to name makeup artists out there, it's a handful, I think, that anyone would be able to list off the top of the head, and you were one of the names.
Aww.
You know, because obviously you worked with Kylie Minogue as well, but you've done so many press editorials and things like that as well. Is there anything particular that in your head just said, yeah, I'm a makeup artist now? You know, because I feel like if you're self-taught and you're climbing up the ladder doing all these bits, you almost have a self-sabotaging sort of confidence. I think a lot of people that I'm finding when I'm talking to them have a point of self-sabotage or not feeling confident in their skills because it's so saturated now. You know, you're comparing yourself constantly. So,
and that was a really beautiful moment because I don't do that anymore. And that happened about 6 or 7 years ago. And it changed everything for me. I just felt completely opened up. I realised, as we all have, that nobody owns anybody anyway. You don't have clients forever. You have moments with people and then you pass, and it's a business at the end of the day. But when I really, really properly accepted that I couldn't control my jobs and my clients, I just was like, listen, I can't, you know, whether I'm with the same agency as you, whether we're with the same person, I don't know. It's not in my control. People are going to like me. People are not going to like me. People are going to prefer someone else because of X, Y, and Z, and I can't control it. Yeah. So now I just champion everyone because I'm actually delighted for them because we all have our moment, right? We all have our moment of woo, and then sometimes we have to just go to the side. Yeah. And we have to wait. And we have to tap our fingers and go, it'll come back. It will come back. And then you meet someone and something else happens and then you go off. Yeah. So I know that's how it rolls over all these years. So you just have to be patient and genuinely championing people and enjoying people's stories. It's just really freeing. And not to have any, because I was very competitive in my 20s, not going to deny it. I wanted to do really well and I wanted to be with the best, doing the best, and had a great time. Now I don't feel like that. I'm just like, it will just be what it will be.
So what do you think was that point and then that switch? Because I'm sort of in my head now thinking, my switch was...
I just think, you know, you get let down a lot. The first time that someone decides that maybe they're going to go for a different team and you're not involved in that team, it is literally heart-wrenching. It's like, you know, it's like a proper breakup, like a first breakup. And you never really, because obviously you can't have emotions in business, no one ever deals with that particularly well because they don't want to upset you. So they just think that it's never going to happen. And back in those days, before social media, you didn't know until maybe you saw a magazine credit and you're like, oh, I didn't do that Vogue cover, or I didn't do this, or you just think, geez. So obviously now you know. And I don't know. I think probably just getting older and just not giving a bleep anymore because, you know, things happen in life. And very much in your 20s, it's all about work, isn't it? For us, anyway, we're quite fortunate that we could do that. And obviously I have 3 boys, I have a family, I've had, you know, lots of different scenarios going on in my life. And you just think, well, you know, health is your wealth, isn't it?
Health is your wealth. Let's rewind back. 3 boys.
3 boys.
So how have you juggled, right? Because obviously, you know, like you said, you don't say no. You keep working. Yeah. I was in the same situation. I was practically in denial until I literally let my baby come out, and then I was still controlling my team and stuff from the hospital bed the next day after my baby.
Oh my God!
I assumed I'd be okay, but obviously,
it's hard. It's a big learning, and you would have learned from that. And I'm sure you didn't do that the second time round.
No,
probably gave yourself 24 hours.
4 weeks.
4 weeks. Round of applause. That's good for you. Yeah, I think I remember saying to my agent, you know, I'm pregnant. And I thought, oh my God, no one's going to want to have a makeup artist, a mum makeup artist. I mean, I'm just going to lose all my work. I mean, how ridiculous. But that's how terrified I was. 29 and I was pregnant. I was just like, oh God, that's it. That's the end of it. I mean, what a shame. But actually, it wasn't the end of it. I took my time off. I remember kind of doing a client, jumping in the car and then breastfeeding. And my husband at that point then was freelance as well. So I really actually don't remember. We had lovely childcare, flexible people. I was like, sometimes you might need to come at 5 in the morning, but you can leave at 10 a.m. And sometimes you might have to stay till midnight because Tim's away. And literally, you can't think it, you can't plan it. You just have to go with it. I mean, it's harder now. They're challenging me like mentally and doing all this thing and exams. It's just a bit like going to work. Like yesterday I went to work and I was like, and relax. You know,
a day off, isn't it, when we go to work?
It is, because obviously we are blessed to be creative people, that is my sanctuary. And, you know, later when I'm not, you know, when life isn't so demanding, I'll get back to my pottery and my art and stuff like that. I see yours and what you did in lockdown. I'm just like, I just got these stacks of paints and pads that are just literally not being used. But, you know, just wait. And so that is relaxing, isn't it? But we all do it. I mean, 3 is probably a little bit insane, but, you know, I couldn't be without my youngest as well. So, you know, it is what it is.
Your youngest?
But also 10. But also, again, Lan, as a balancing act, to have the children in the hardest part of our job and the most annoying part of our industry and how we work is that it does affect you emotionally. Even though I'm saying I'm free about whatever, and I'm very happy for everybody else. I'm not comparing myself to anybody anymore. I really am not. But obviously, if you work with someone, whether it's a fashion director, a stylist, or whatever, or a music artist, actress, and you don't get rebooked, it's just a bit like, okay, I'm not going to you have a quiet week. And you're like, oh dear, now what's gone on? You think, oh dear. But we obviously do other things, and social media is great because you can kind of keep reacting like that. But that's the hardest thing. I think, you know, for a lot of freelancers, I'm sure it's the same for actors. It's just trying to kind of not let your job be emotional. Like I craved for many years just to kind of work in a bank. Like, how amazing you could just go to work, do your thing, and then leave. And that to me was like freeing. But, you know, it's yin and yang, isn't it?
Yin and yang.
You can't have it all great. You know, there's got to be like a downside, but that's the downside, I think.
It's funny because like I've always, you know, when problems arrived, I've always found a way to just do something else. And I think, you know, it's only when the pandemic hit, that's when it's like, oh my God, what do I do now? That's when
you blossomed. So for anyone else who doesn't know Lan, in the pandemic, Lan, we were just talking off air, and it has to be said that, you know, you literally became a leader in our industry. You really were someone that everyone connected with. And I'm saying messages that I was getting into my DMs and stuff, you must follow Lan, look what she's doing. She's really helping us with our kit and COVID. She's being really open and she's sharing stuff. And it was a bit like when Lisa first started her YouTube channel, people were like, oh my God, she's telling everyone that she uses Bioderma or whatever it was, like, because it was a very secret. A lot of people were very, you know, I remember doing shows, oh my God, literally. I mean, I know you do a lot of shows, but, you know, depending on what kind of teams you get on, you can be very unlucky or you can be very lucky. And everyone would have these black Muji boxes with the flip lids.
Yeah.
And they would set their stuff up and they would flip their lids. So it would just be like a black table. I'm like, why are you hiding your stuff? I've got some great stuff too. Actually, if you flipped open your lid, we could maybe share and compare, not just like, you know, you can't really paint someone's face kind of like underneath it.
Yeah, but you know,
but the pandemic has led you to this, which is fantastic. And it's just great to have the communication of everyone to share their stories in our industry. And you are literally driving that.
Exactly. It's just another way forward of just bringing something else. I wanted to highlight, obviously, you're a leader too, because you did the NHS morale.
Yes.
And you brought in everybody. That was a whole marathon. So, you know, what inspired you to do that? Is it still going?
No. Afterwards, I did groups of people within different wards and different hospitals just to kind of generate more, because there was obviously that interest then. It came from a message actually from an American nurse from my YouTube channel saying if I could just have half an hour with you after my long shift, I would feel so much better. And I thought, well, I can definitely do that. But wouldn't it be wonderful to do it for so many people? I just thought, well, I have to do it. And I'm not, like we were talking about soldiers and sergeant majors, I'm not that person. So it literally, it was like an out-of-body experience. It's like, okay, I'm going to do this. No, please don't. I am. I'm going to do it. And luckily, again, Max Factor were very helpful. And they didn't, you know, advertise the brand at all, but they gave me their team to help set up all the links, because I didn't even know what Zoom was then. I mean, that's, you know, that's how long ago it was when it first started. People say, I don't even know what that is. You know, how do I communicate? But the long and short of it was 1,000 NHS workers got one-to-one. This was the issue in the beginning, because I didn't want to call it a makeover. And when people were dying and we were all locked at home, that was really not the right sort of terminology to be using. So morale boost was born, and I think that's a great sense of what makeup can do. And actually everyone had different experiences. Some people just wanted to talk. Some people just talked through skincare or different colours. Everyone's experience was different. But when you're caring for people, the best way to recharge is for someone to go, hey, how are you? And actually, because that people don't really say that genuinely, like, you know, going to see a therapist or having some sort of counselling. It's quite emotional when you think you actually have to respond with a sensible answer. And that's quite a lovely thing. And I know a lot of people still, you know, still communicate with their doctors and nurses, which was lovely and great to bring everyone together.
And the thing is, you know, as I was involved with that, and I did a few of the guys as well, it was quite a full-on day, actually, because they were really into all the products and asking loads of questions. Does it, like, still baffle you that people don't know about makeup, considering it's such a massive thing with social media? I mean, how do you think it's changed from then to now?
Well, I just think, what are we doing wrong? Because you guys are not reading the magazines or the supplements or watching anything. I think that it's two-pronged. I think this is our world and we live it, breathe it every single day. But for a person who has a family and a job, they probably think about makeup and skincare for like 0.5% of their day. So it's, you know, it's the thing about cooking, isn't it? You might look at how to cook a certain dish 100 times, but it just doesn't stick. And you look at it because you enjoy the visuals, you like the food, but you're like, well, how do I do that again? So people just are listening and they're watching, but they're not really properly paying attention. And also our skin types, our skin colours and our faces and our aesthetics and how we choose to look are all so different. So there's so many variables. So actually getting what's right for you is very difficult because there's just so many different levels and it's such a personal thing. So it's not one size fits all. But I think if you are someone who I think has genetically blessed, naturally beautiful, never really needed to depend on makeup like we did, you then don't really need to rely on makeup. Then you get to your sort of mid-30s and you're like, you know what, I could actually do with a bit of a boost or a lift or this, and you know, but never really use products. So you literally don't have any skills. And then you try and look for people to follow now, obviously, but it's only product recommendation really that we grew up with in magazines. It was just brand, no kind of proper application. So obviously there are people to follow and people can do that, and I think people do, but it's amazing, isn't it? I mean, how many times do you ask, what's the best concealer? What do you mean? What do you mean there's two types of concealer? Like, wow, I know. So when you think you're waxing on, like when I first started my social media, I thought, oh God, I can't do this. And it was embarrassing because you think all my makeup artist friends are going to look, oh my God, why are you talking about that? Everyone knows that. But I realised that I was talking to Barbara from Bristol. I wasn't talking to because obviously if you're a makeup artist, you should know that anyway. So you don't need to be following me. This is for consumers and people who want to learn. So once I kind of got that in my head, I found I was able to talk about makeup freely.
But you do know that when you talk about brands and stuff, I don't necessarily maybe use what you use. So when I'm just flicking through and I see what you're talking about, I'll go, actually, if Caroline's using it, I'm going to use it. And then I'll go out and buy it. So actually...
And that's why I think what's so key about artists like ourselves is that we will never, ever, ever recommend anything that we wouldn't give to our best friend. And that integrity is so important. I mean, I've turned down lots of different partnerships and money because I just won't do it. Because there's no point, otherwise I'll never be trusted again. And that's the difference, isn't it, I think? Yeah. Between using my social media is something that I do because it's a wonderful way to communicate. It's not where I earn my money. I do earn money from it. The brand says, oh, we've seen that you've been using this. Would you work with us? 100%. But my actual mortgage is paid for on my proper job. And that's the difference, I think, that you need to kind of understand when you're following someone's advice.
Yeah. So if... obviously, you're queen of the red carpet and celebrity. So, I mean, how...
We did the TV show together. You were like, we did Glow Up. You did the fashion show. Yes, and then I did the red carpet one.
Yes, the red carpet. So, oh yeah, I forgot you were on Glow Up.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I wasn't sure if you had said anything about advice on that. So, how did you transition? Because I know, like, working with celebrity is quite high pressure. So, if somebody sees the glam of it all, you know...
I suppose from music, I suppose from working with lots of different artists and doing red carpets through that. Obviously, our poor actresses, we were talking about this yesterday, you know, sort of even sort of 5-6 years ago, really weren't looked after because there was no budgets for them to have hair and makeup like they were in America. And if you compared the images on Getty compared to the images that you'd get from America to England, I mean, it was incomparable and it was a real shame. So as I started meeting different publicists, I was like, we need to change that because it's not fair that they have to put their own makeup on. Their own makeup, it does not translate. They do not know how to put the hair with the face, with the outfit. And it's a real art. You know, these women, you know, it takes a couple of hours to get these girls ready. That's why it all works. And if you don't have someone being, you know, critical and, you know, putting your look together and being objective, then it's impossible to do it for yourself because they are actresses. they aren't their own brand. They are different characters, playing different stories. So they need that. So that's all changed now. And obviously there is much more money in that. So, I mean, not a lot, but there's money to get people to help you formulate your own brand. So that's obviously much bigger, and it wasn't like that before. And there's many more junkets because of Amazon and Apple and everything else that's going on. So that's fantastic. And I love working with individuals. I think as I've grown older, it's nicer to work with an older clientele as well. I don't really know. You can't, Leanne, you can't plan it, can you?
No.
I'm just literally going with it. And fortunately, I've continued to work. And it's been amazing, and long may it last. You just don't know, do you? But from, wafting a Polaroid in the studio, waiting for it to develop, to actually the first photographer that said to me, do you know about Google? I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, you can just put anything in and you get pictures up. And I'm like, oh, really? Okay, we're in the studio. It was like a really dark winter's evening. He's like, just say one thing you want to look at. And I was like, all right, body painting. Let's see what comes up. I mean, it's typical, right? So he puts in body painting. 6 pictures come up. 6 pictures. I mean, it's amazing. Because I was like, yeah, but I've just got books for that kind of stuff. Why would I want to go on the computer? It just didn't seem like to connect at all. And here we are, and I'm sure you had the same thing where everyone was like, do you want to do Instagram? You're like, well, how do I do that?
What advice would you give to anyone listening that wants to do it?
Makeup.
Any selling tools that you wish you knew?
I think you just have to not know where the future might take you in terms of this media. There is so much work, obviously in film and TV now. I mean, so much work. And I came from a TV background. So I love working with people. I never came from an isolated, independent makeup artist from the word go. So I've always worked with teams. So that's why I like to sort of share stuff, I suppose, more than others. And I would say you just have to contact people and be persistent, but not contact them, I want to work with you, I want to do this. Just maybe being supportive of what they're doing, maybe just say that you like this, or just kind of have a sort of open communication. Then you need to contact all the different agencies, and you need to be persistent about that. You need to be making sure that you are doing work that is representative of what the top makeup artists that you are looking at are doing as well. So if you put your work next to their work, how does that compare? Are you using too much colour? Are you retouching your pictures too much? Are your models the same? Is the variety the same? Do you need to go and work with different photographers? And it's so easy, right, to find people that will work with you. I mean, we still work for free. I still go and do editorials that don't cost me any money to get a tear sheet of someone or some photographer. So don't expect to go in and work and get money. I mean, I have had assistants going, what time am I going to finish? Right, well, sorry, I'm never going to work with you again. And I'm just not. What time am I going to finish? Well, I don't know. I don't know what time I never know what time I'm going to finish. It's usually around this time on this particular job, but you just don't ask that. And to be a great assistant, just be really bloody efficient. And you've got to put yourself, it's the hardest thing, right? It's like if you said to me, right, go and do a really beautiful bronzy makeup, Caroline, I'd start going like that because I would be trying to think through your head, like, what would you do? It's really difficult, isn't it? But to be an assistant, you are there to facilitate that person's day and to make that person's day so much easier. So that person can't do without you. It's not about you doing the makeup or anything. I remember I screwed up big time with this makeup artist that I assisted. We were doing this thing for Weller. We had 8 models. And I arrived in the studio in Soho, and I literally was so over keen. And she went out, all the models were there, and they were saying, well, how long is it going to be? And I said, I don't really know. And the makeup artist had gone out for a fag. So I was like, I'll just get on with it. So she'd literally gone for like 45 minutes. So I'd done 2 of the girls. And she came in and I said, I've already done 2 of the girls because they really want us to start. And she went, how dare you? How dare you? What right have you got to do? You don't even know what you're doing. Literally, I was kicked out. She kicked me out. But I was like, well, I've done the makeup. But it's not about you. You just have to make that person's life easier. I think that's some good advice, right?
That's brilliant advice. I mean, because, sometimes when I'm teaching, and I don't know if you do much teaching, but, this is like gold dust to hear somebody say that, because sometimes when I tell them, that you've got to be efficient and do all this stuff, and you can't do makeup on set when I don't even know how good you are yet. Yeah. They just go, well, that's why I'm here, to do the makeup. I want to do your job. And you're like...
and that's the sad part of the kind of Instagram instant success It's not about that. That's not going to give you any longevity whatsoever.
So what makes somebody stand out for you?
Just someone who's, I wheel my bag in, they've already emptied the bag out and they've laid it out, but they've said, listen, what do you want out? What are we doing? And I'm like, oh, I actually have no idea. You know, just thinking ahead and just being really organised. I am chaos. I am not really organised. I know everything is, but it's not da-da-da. And I had one girl who came in who was amazing, Laura. She had a labelling machine with her. I mean, yes, I've now bought a labelling machine, still haven't got it out of the box. But anyway, just, you know, having those lovely ideas, go, you know, what do you think about this, Karen? I've got this, and or just having some wipes near you, or holding your brushes, or just, you think, wow, we can actually work together. Having an assistant, you kind of need to morph together so they're actually switched on. And the worst thing that you can do, and I know it's really hard socially for young people, is you cannot come into a studio and think, as no one's saying, just go on your phone and wait. Because I know it's a default thing, and I know that people do it because they aren't confident and they think, well, I'm just sitting down, so I use my phone. Please do not do that. Please do not do that. Just stand there and wait and just ask and watch and watch and watch. But if you're on your phone, you may as well not be there. And you're not going to get paid very much. So make sure you get everything you can from that job. And that's the hardest thing, I think, about our society now, that everyone is elsewhere when they are somewhere that's a real great opportunity. And that's, you know, a big thing to miss.
Mm. So, is there anything that you'd like to say? Anything that you want to promote? Or tell me, what's next for you?
I have no idea, Lan. I have no idea what's next.
Anything that you want to do? I'm going to manifest it, because I've done this with everyone. Like, is there anything you want? Okay, we're going to manifest it and make it happen. And so
I just don't know, and that's a safeguarding. Very honestly, I've never. I had a little. I didn't realise it was manifestation then, but I had a newspaper cutout of this makeup artist with a big floppy hat making up Cindy Crawford. It's like I was going to bring it today on the bus. I was like, damn, I should have bring that. It's like, I want to be this one day with a little arrow making up Cindy Crawford. I've never made up Cindy Crawford, but that wasn't the goal. Just to be on a beach doing makeup, that looked great, right?
What is the power of makeup to you?
What is the power of makeup? For me, I just think it's allowing you to be who you want to be on any certain day, whether that's kind of embellishment or just being flamboyant or just kind of concealing what you want to hide or just literally being creative. There's such a buzz in buying something new, and I've done it all the time. If I see something, whether it's the packaging or it's a texture or it's a colour, you want to buy into that gorgeousness of it, don't you? It just is my thing, I suppose. Yeah, I don't know. It's not the best answer, is it?
No, I love that. I love that. I think it's so different because as you're a makeup artist as well as me, I just think it's so lovely just to hear someone else say similar things. It's quite...
I mean, there'll be so many times where I make someone up and they're like, oh, can I just have a bit more pink on my lips? Or can I said, please don't change it. Let's just take a photograph of what we've done. And then you'll see it come together, because daily makeup and makeup that you might wear on a Saturday night going out with your mates is not the same as what we are doing, okay? Makeup translates very differently on film with what you're wearing, and we're trying to portray you as a certain person, or we're resembling this as a story, as a narrative of a song, so we have to do it, so you're going to have to be brave. And that's what's lovely, I think, after we've done it for so long, we know how makeup translates, don't we? Yes. So that part of my job, I absolutely get a kick from. And then it's wonderful that aside from that, you can use it as a source of power and confidence, and you can also just change who you are. You know, whether you put your nail varnish on or whether it just kind of creates just a bit of, it's a good feeling, isn't it? It's a booster.
Just as a last one, actually, because this whole aging thing, I think, as you're getting to a certain age, like I'm in my 40s now, I've noticed obviously things are dropping, things moving, and that whole question of surgery or Botox and stuff. And I remember when I was younger, I used to think, oh no, never grow old gracefully. But then I realized my mother had done all the surgical stuff, but she never told me.
No.
Yeah, and it was only when later on that my cousins said to me, oh, do you know how, your mum looks great, doesn't she? Yeah, back in the days, in the 80s, she went to America, she had a facelift, she had a nose job, she had her eye lift. And I was like, holy crap. And then fat injected into her hands, and these were all experiments back then, It
was very experimental.
Obviously,
in the 80s,
now,
very brave.
I'm getting into her age group, and I'm thinking, do I, don't I? And it's that whole thing where it's actually normal for the younger kids in the 20s, 30s, all having it. I mean, so where women want to go and get it done, you know, how do you feel about that? Like any miracle creams that you recommend or anything like?
Well, I think it's wonderful that we understand what vitamin A does. We understand now what vitamin C does, and I hope that we can communicate that so other people can kind of take from that, and that companies are exposing their Inky List much more so you can understand what works. There are some great Japanese products, Shiseido and Clé de Peau. I have no idea what's in there, but they're amazing. But on the baseline with the Inky List and the Ordinary and things like that, it's really wonderful that you can sort of be your own chemist if you really listen and understand. So we never had that. We were so limited, weren't we? And there's also great skincare brands now that you can get delivered to your door that are prescription strength. And that's also fantastic. So you don't have to go and pay for a dermatologist anymore, which couldn't be up to £700. You can now kind of do these online things of, you know, proper dermatologists can actually look at your skin, analyse it, and then you can get really strong products, which I think is fantastic. So these changes are brilliant. I can't judge anyone for what they do. Everyone's got their own pathway. I think it's really sad when young girls have absolutely no expression whatsoever. And I know from working with certain people that people feel very vulnerable if they think that people can see sadness or fear or worry or any kind of emotion. Like it's a very strange world that feeling emotion is a bad thing and creates anxiety straight away. We all need to learn how to deal with different emotions and label them as such, not just as an anxiety umbrella. And to kind of, you know, shoot loads of Botox into your skin at 20 to obscure that for you to stay as though you were strong is deeply saddening. Anyway, it is what it is. I think being realistic about how you look, and that's why I don't use any filters in my pictures. But I play with light very well, because I'll tell you what, I can look really crap in one picture and I can just go 90 degrees and I look so much better. But we're taught that, right? I know how to work with light to make myself the best I can. And I just thought if I filter my face and I look like how I'd like to look, when you see me this morning, you'll be a bit like, oh, flipping heck, look at her. And I've seen that with influencers that I've worked with and seen them at events going, wow. And I just thought, no, I have to be realistic because I am getting older. I'm 50 next year and I want to look as fresh as I can for 50. And of course, I try all these different treatments. I'm lucky that I get to try these treatments. But I did have my lips done about 6 months ago and it terrified the hell out of me, and I probably won't do it again. It was an experience.
That put me off.
You don't need it done, but I just thought, oh, Caroline. And all I wanted was my old lips back. You know, but let me tell you, once it settled down, I fell in love with it. And I was like, oh, I love my lips now. I mean, they're not very different, but it just made a difference for me applying makeup on camera. And if I didn't do that, I wouldn't have bothered, because I just think I just have to accept myself getting older, because guess what? I'm so much a better person being older and wiser and, you know, all of that. I've just got to stop. The hardest, you know, stop obsessing about those things, because my natural resting face is obviously, you know, I feel my eyes are a bit hooded or my face looks a bit flat. But you know when you're speaking to someone, and hopefully I am now, that I look better when I'm talking, but we kind of look at ourselves and analyse ourselves when we're kind of just like staring in the mirror and you're like, oh God. But we don't necessarily come across like that. And it's all about the energy, isn't it? And the confidence. So I try and work on that. But no one wants to look tired. No one wants to look haggard. And there are these things that can help. It's just choosing the right people to kind of do it so that you kind of look as good as you can for as long as you can. But, you know, we have to, you know, celebrate being older, right? And it's slowly but surely, with the right photographers and the right lighting and great models, you know, you are seeing more women, you know, in their 50s and 60s looking great. But still, it still needs to come forward. It's still not enough, in my opinion. But I think it will definitely change over the next few years, hopefully anyway.
Well, as makeup artists, we're doing our best to get the word out there. So, so just to let everyone know where to find you, generally at speedbeauty.com.
So Caroline Barnes Makeup on Instagram, and then Speed Beauty on YouTube. Yeah, I think it's Speed Beauty. I'll come up.
Okay, perfect. Caroline, thank you so much for joining me. It was such amazing chat, and I feel like
thanks for inviting me. I'm part of the Land crew.
I feel like
I've been accepted. It's so lovely, and I'm really, really grateful for that. I would not want to be on the outside of this. This is really special, and I think it's so nice to have a community in any space of life. A community in your road, a community, you know, of people, industry experts, and we don't have that anymore. Remember the InStyle Awards that we used to go to?
Yes.
And then that was the only time everyone would come together and we'd all be looking at each other and go, oh, that's so-and-so, that's so-and-so. But, you know, because of social media, it's nice that we can